On April 6, 1934, John Dillinger and Billy Frechette traveled to Mooresville, Indiana, where his sister Audrey made his favorite, coconut cream pie. They knew he was an outlaw. It was all over the newspapers and radio. But here, he was Johnny Dillinger, the son and brother that they loved. It was likely a bittersweet moment. It could be the last time they ever saw him alive. Later that day, John and his brother Hubert drove to Ohio to visit Pete Pierpont's parents. It's unclear if Dillinger was going to give them money as Pete was in jail, or propose a way to get him out. What they didn't know was that his parents visited him every weekend. But as they weren't home, John and Hubert turned around and drove back to Mooresville. Around 3:30 in the morning on April 7th, Hubert fell asleep at the wheel and crashed the car at Noblesville, Indiana. As John Dillinger was a wanted man, they couldn't just wait around for help. They immediately left. When police found the car, they discovered a machine gun, maps, and even a bullwhip. John told his brother that the whip was for a lawyer that had ran off with his retainer. Back at Mooresville, Billy, Hubert, and his wife went out to buy a new Ford. Presumably, John now needed another car, but couldn't go get one by himself. The next day, the family enjoyed a Sunday picnic. Billy took John's two nieces for a ride in the new car. It was as close to normal and perfect as it ever would be, like a foreboding chapter of a tragedy to come. The next day on April 9th, Dillinger had a meeting at a tavern in Chicago, but Billy felt like something was off. He parked a block away to watch from a distance, just in case she was right. As soon as she entered the tavern, she was apprehended by the FBI and walked to a waiting car. He wanted to run after her with guns blazing. This was the woman he loved, but he knew he wouldn't survive it. Billy might even be caught in the crossfire. Maybe she'd beat the charges, or if not, he and the gang would break her out. Or maybe she'd just be safe while serving a short sentence. Driving away was one of the hardest decisions he ever had to make. Dillinger paid for her legal defense, but the cards were stacked against her. 28 witnesses in all. There was no way she was walking free. Convicted of harboring a fugitive, Billy was sentenced to 2 years and 1 day at the Federal Correctional Farm in Milan, Michigan. Legal appeals were made, but she was stuck. It's said that John Dillinger parked next to the prison and stared at the fortified walls. He knew he was helpless to get her out. Billy and John would never see each other again. It's said that after Billy went to jail, John Dillinger was never the same. He blamed himself, and for good reason. They wouldn't have known who she was if they didn't know his face. Fame had got her arrested. Dillinger was so well known, a celebrity, that women were sending him fan mail to his dad's house at Mooresville. Far from anonymous or a wallflower, he was very quotable for the newspapers, saying things like, "I don't drink much. I don't smoke much. I just rob banks." During one robbery, a frightened woman offered him her money, to which he replied, "We're not here for your money, lady. "We want the bank's money." He even wrote a letter to Henry Ford, telling him that he loved the Ford V8. It had gotten him out of many tight spots. He didn't even try to be discreet, and it had cost him the love of his life. After Billy went to jail, the gang retreated to Little Bohemia Lodge, deep in the Wisconsin woods. Not just a safe house to plan the next score, but for John to get his head straight. The gang hoped that a few days of poker, whiskey, and women would change things, but Dillinger wasn't laughing. He stared out the window like he was already behind bars. With a high bounty on their heads, nowhere was safe, not even here. At midnight on April 22, 1934, incredibly desperate for an arrest, agents stormed the lodge without caution. Thinking it was the gang trying to leave, they shot up a car, killing one innocent civilian and wounding another. Seeing the commotion from the lodge, the gang opened fire. It was a fight for their lives, with bullets flying in both directions. Babyface Nelson killed Ancient Bomb and fled into the night. Dillinger, Van Meter, and Hamilton made a dash for the woods and disappeared. It was a close call, way too close. On May 3rd of 1934, undaunted, or perhaps tempting fate, they then robbed the First National Bank in Fostoria, Ohio. While stealing around $17,000, it turned into a bloodbath when police showed up. An estimated 150 shots were fired, wounding 2 police officers and 2 citizens. Hostages were taken as human shields and later released. It was no longer polite bandits walking out with money. Gang members were getting recognized. People motivated by reward money were making tips. Something had to be done. Dillinger and Van Meter found a plastic surgeon that catered to criminals. If they didn't look the same, maybe they could disappear. At the very least, wouldn't be recognized before they could rob a bank. On May 28th, the two went through painful facial reconstruction. Acid was applied to their fingertips, but for all the pain and suffering, it didn't work. They pretty much looked the same, and the fingerprints grew back. Basically, they had some moles removed and a facelift. Dillinger was not happy. After recuperating, they hit the Merchants National Bank at South Bend, Indiana on June 30th of 1934, a little less than $30,000. In just 12 months, the gang had stolen nearly $325,000, about $8 million in today's money. Ironically, the FBI spent 4 times more money than the gang stole, just trying to catch them. In today's money, about $48 million. Although John Dillinger didn't know it, the South Bend heist would be the last act of his criminal career. Being a Cubs fan, John Dillinger liked to stay in Chicago and attend games at Wrigley Field. He assumed the name Jimmy Lawrence and told people he was a clerk at the Board of Trade. People bought it, and he enjoyed a certain level of anonymity. As Chicago was such a large city, he could easily blend in. While laying low in Chicago, he met Rita Hamilton, who went by the name of Polly. She had a colorful past. Once a prostitute, then married to a police officer, and finally a divorced 26-year-old waitress. With this colorful past came colorful connections. She was living with Anna Sage, who was not just a landlord, but ran a prostitution business, Polly's former employer. And just like John Dillinger, Anna Sage was an alias. She was a Romanian immigrant named Anna Ivanova Akaleva, aka Anna Campagna. Anna, Polly, John, and Anna's son Steve began spending time together, having dinners and playing cards, one of John's favorite hobbies. Polly said that John, whom she knew as Jimmy Lawrence, would even do the dishes, a far cry from the cold-hearted killer and bank robber. But while Polly didn't know the truth about John Dillinger, Anna did, and Anna had a problem. The city was well aware of her prostitution business and wanted to deport her. To save her own skin, she contacted the FBI and offered John Dillinger if they could help her avoid deportation. She told them that she, Polly, and John were going to a movie and provided the place and time. The trap was set, and John Dillinger didn't have a clue. On July 22nd of 1934, John, Polly, and Anna visited the Biograph Theater. Ironically, they watched Manhattan Melodrama, a film about gangsters. Being an actual gangster, I can only wonder if he thought about what they got right or what they got wrong. It starred Clark Gable, which John Dillinger strongly resembled, being handsome and wearing a thin dark mustache. As Dillinger left the theater, he spotted FBI agents closing in, and his criminal instincts engaged. He bolted into a nearby alley and went for his pistol. Agents immediately opened fire. Just 2 blocks from the bright lights of the theater, public enemy number 1 lay face down on the pavement, dead at only 31 years old. Women dipped handkerchiefs and even dresses in his blood as souvenirs. It was insanity. Anna Sage was branded the woman in red, even though she was wearing an orange skirt. Some say it was the bright lights of the theater that made it look red, while others claim it just sounded better for the newspapers. She was given $5,000 in reward money, but despite her cooperation, she was still deported. An autopsy confirmed that Dillinger was shot 4 times. 1 bullet entered the back of his neck, exiting under his right eye. Another passed through his chest. 2 grazed him. Even a death mask was made, as if he was Abraham Lincoln or some other national treasure. His body was laid out for public viewing, and curiosity turned morbid. Officials charged 25 cents per person, and estimates say that more than 15,000 people passed through the line. Some even went through twice. This was the man they'd read about in the papers and had heard about on the radio. On July 24th, his body was taken to Mooresville for a showing at the E.F. Harvey Funeral Home. While many dropped by that knew him as a young man, the baseball player. It was much the same insanity as Chicago, with gawkers all wanting to get a look. Despite it being 103 degrees, a line of people circled the block twice. Today, Marco's Pizza and an empty family video store sit on the site. That evening, his body was taken to his sister's house in Indianapolis. Back in the day, this was a very common practice. Although it seems eerie today, the body remained there all night before a family service was held the next morning. There was some controversy about burying John Dillinger at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis. He was an outlaw, responsible for so many crimes. But his dad had owned the family plot for nearly 30 years, and it was settled. Just like the storm that was John Dillinger, a severe thunderstorm fell on the cemetery during the burial, providing a dramatic send-off for public enemy number 1. For anyone else, the grave would be the last chapter, but not for John Dillinger. His death took on a life of its own. When I was in my 20s, I visited the John Dillinger Museum in Nashville, Indiana. I'm not saying it was everyone's cup of tea, but it did drive home a solid message. Crime doesn't pay. The easy road always ends early. The collection was sold in 1998, and a new Dillinger Gallery opened at Hammond, Indiana at the Welcome Center from 1999 to 2015. Then in 2015, the museum was moved to Crown Point, Indiana, where it lived in the courthouse basement. But just 2 years later, it also closed. Despite the closings, public fascination with Dillinger hasn't went away. There have been 8 movies about his life, including one with actor Johnny Depp. I think it's because people still wonder, what flipped the switch? How did a kid from small-town Indiana become public enemy number 1? Because of John Dillinger's seemingly unstoppable tactics and others that followed in his footsteps, places like Goshen, Indiana took extensive measures. More than just alarms and more police, they built a bulletproof police post to guard the banks on the corner. Built in 1939, John Dillinger might have been gone, but he was certainly not forgotten. Time has passed, but his story sure hasn't faded away. The alley where he was killed in Chicago now has a mural. And the fake gun he used to break out of Crown Point sold for $70,000. And the sheriff's car he stole sold at auction for $150,000. The Thompson submachine gun that he stole from Peru, Indiana has long been on display in Tucson, Arizona, though Indiana wants it back. Which takes us to his grave and a story that won't end. Often called Slippery John by law enforcement, it was rumored that John Dillinger did not die in 1934, escaping once again. The man that Polly Hamilton and Anna Sage knew went by the name of Jimmy Lawrence, leading to the idea that it was Jimmy and not Johnny that died that day. When Dillinger's dad saw the body at the funeral home, he told the funeral director, "That's not my son." His sister Audrey looked for a scar on his one leg, received from a barbed wire fence. She allegedly couldn't find it. And as Anna was trying to evade deportation, she purposely delivered a look-alike. At least that's the theory. And there are a few other suspicious things to consider. The hurried autopsy report got a few things wrong. It said his eyes were brown, when Dillinger's were actually gray. Ear shape was different, teeth were different. The autopsy said Dillinger was 5'7", while his prison record said he was 5'9". His fingerprints did grow back, but there was never proof that they matched the ones taken at Lima, Tucson, or Crown Point. Some have speculated that J. Edgar Hoover needed an FBI win so bad after the botched raids at Lincoln Court Apartments in Little Bohemia that he simply ignored the autopsy. Others have said that the Dillinger family facilitated a cover-up, quickly saying that the body was his when there were so many peculiarities. John Dillinger had enough money to disappear and live comfortably for the rest of his life without a single new robbery. Shortly after the Biograph shooting, police were told that a man resembling John Dillinger was hiding out in Crawford County, Indiana. Police were dispatched, but whomever was there was gone by the time they arrived. At Shoals, Indiana, gangsters allegedly had a safe house above White River, with a basement that exited to a cave, a quick getaway to the road. In one room, John Dillinger allegedly scratched a large picture of a pistol on the wall, passing time as things cooled down. In 1983, J. Robert Nash published the Dillinger dossier, claiming that Dillinger not only attended his own funeral, but was living on an Indian reservation in 1938. He allegedly had a photo of Dillinger and his new wife, but it has never been authenticated. Compounding the rumor was that Dillinger's dad had over a ton of concrete and reinforced rebar poured over his son's casket. He said that it was to protect his son's body from those that would dig it up. Many find that highly suspicious. In 2019, Dillinger's relatives filed a permit to dig him up and do DNA testing. While granted, Crown Hill Cemetery filed a motion and the effort was stopped. What we do know is that fans of John Dillinger have chipped off pieces of the gravestone for souvenirs. In fact, it's been replaced 4 times since 1934. Even today, going on 100 years since he died, people leave little gifts, such as a pack of his favorite cigarettes, or a .45 caliber bullet, the caliber of both his Thompson submachine gun and 1911 pistol. When I visited his grave, it led to many questions. Are outlaws born that way, or are they people like us? Only a few bad breaks from crossing the line. If we lost a job, had no way to feed our family, or needed money for a child's surgery, could we be next? When you break it all down, John Dillinger was rich and famous for just 12 months. And for all the money he stole, he couldn't enjoy it long, and he couldn't take it with him. If he'd just kept the safe, boring job in Martinsville, he might have ended up poor, an ordinary old man, but with a wife that loved him for decades, maybe even some kids. Or he could have stayed in the Navy, still serving on the USS Utah, when it sank in 1941 during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. It's hard to tell where any of us will end up. Life is an unpredictable thing. In the end, it's all about choices. Good ones, bad ones, and everything in between. May we learn from mistakes made by others.